In a bold move that has sparked intense debate, a federal judge has temporarily halted President Trump's controversial plan to deploy the National Guard in Chicago, raising critical questions about presidential power and the limits of federal intervention in local affairs. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this a necessary measure to combat crime and unrest, or an overreach of authority that undermines state sovereignty? Let's dive in. U.S. District Judge April Perry issued a 2-week restraining order after a heated 2-hour courtroom battle between lawyers representing the federal government and the state of Illinois. The decision came in response to Trump's directive to send hundreds of National Guard troops to Chicago, ostensibly to address immigration enforcement and what the White House claims are soaring crime rates. Illinois officials, however, argue that this move constitutes a constitutional crisis, with Governor J.B. Pritzker declaring, "Donald Trump is not a king, and his administration is not above the law." And this is the part most people miss. Judge Perry explicitly stated she found no credible evidence that there is a danger of a rebellion in the state of Illinois, directly challenging the administration's justification for the deployment. Meanwhile, on the ground in Broadview, a handful of Guard soldiers were seen near an ICE facility as protesters gathered outside, highlighting the tension between federal authority and local resistance. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson celebrated the ruling as a win for the people of Chicago and the rule of law, vowing to continue fighting what he calls the Trump administration's war on Chicago. The city's Democratic leaders argue that Trump has exceeded his authority and ignored their pleas to keep the National Guard off the streets. But the Justice Department counters that Chicago is plagued by tragic lawlessness and a brazen new form of hostility toward federal law enforcement, a claim that has divided opinions. Here's the controversial interpretation. While the nearly 150-year-old Posse Comitatus Act restricts the military's role in domestic law enforcement, Trump has hinted at invoking the Insurrection Act, which allows the president to deploy active duty troops in states unable to quell an insurrection. Critics argue this would set a dangerous precedent, while supporters claim it's a necessary tool to restore order. What do you think? Is this a justified use of presidential power or a slippery slope toward federal overreach? Adding to the complexity, Judge Sarah Ellis issued a separate ruling restricting federal agents' use of force against protesters and journalists in northern Illinois, requiring them to wear visible identification. This comes amid viral footage of masked plainclothes officers conducting immigration enforcement, fueling public outrage. As the debate rages on, one thing is clear: this case is far from over. The White House has vowed to appeal, with spokesperson Abigail Jackson stating, "The president will not turn a blind eye to the lawlessness plaguing American cities." Meanwhile, 24 other states with Democratic leadership have joined the legal fight, signaling a broader national clash over federal authority and state rights. Thought-provoking question for you. Should the president have the power to deploy the National Guard in cities without state consent? Or does this undermine the principles of federalism? Share your thoughts in the comments. This is a conversation that needs your voice.